Well, good morning, and thank you, Todd, for that great introduction. It's always congratulations to you, Mr. Secretary, for his new position. And I see my fellow West Virginians in attendance here. It's always great to be with everybody, and it's great to be the one holding the gavel on the EPW committee in this coming year. I'm very excited about that. I know my ranking member here was here earlier. Apparently said we have a great relationship, which apparently is true. That is definitely true, and I attribute it to the fact that Sheldon Whitehouse actually spent 1 year in the state of West Virginia clerking for Justice Neely a long time ago in our state. So we have a good working relationship. We obviously have different political philosophies and different political emphasis, but we intend to carry on, at least I do as the chair, the bipartisan nature of the EPW committee. You know, it's hard. It's environment. I mean, those are very difficult to find the sweet spots. But nice EPW part of EPW is the transportation area. We can find and have found over the years good bipartisan consensus where you give a little, you get a little, and that's what I hope to continue to do with Sheldon Whitehouse, and I think we'll be successful with that. So I heard the little story. I think that was on Route 35, bouncing around in that, what do you call it, a 777 or something? That was pretty scary. I remember that. That was where I got a piece of advice from my former district director a long time ago. That was back when you could on the House side, when you got money into your district, if you were on the transportation committee for the big bills, and I think it was $52 million, I think something like that, which was a lot for a freshman or maybe sophomore member of the House to get. And I remember my district director at that time, Ann McCuskey, said to me, go big on one project. Don't just fritter around to one, because the tendency is, I'll do a little bit in Taylor County, I'll do a little bit in Kanawha County, I'll do a little bit in this county, and then nothing ever gets done. So I'm happy to say that 777 I was riding on was my Route 35. I think it took, how long? 15 years to get it done, but we finally got it done. And it's a nice piece of highway that cuts across West Virginia quite nicely. So I'm excited about that. It was funny to hear that story again. I do remember rumbling along. There's nothing I wouldn't do, I guess. So in September 26, we will have the expiration of the highway bill. As you recall, with the last bill that we wrote in our committee with Chairman Carper, we wrote that bill in our committee. We got it out with a unanimous vote out of committee. We also paired it with the water and wastewater bill, which is another massive bill that we do every 5 to 6 years. And those were really the foundational aspects that were then rolled into the IIJA. And I'm very proud that we as the committee did what we were supposed to do. We worked it through committee, we had amendments, we had stakeholders come in, we had hearings, we had all of the buy-in from all of the different communities. Did everybody get what they want to know? But we were able to forge a compromise and be able to, I think, be very representational of all parts of the country. And that's what we're going to try to do again as we move forward towards this reauthorization in 2026. So some of the lessons learned, I think, are extremely important. My priorities, I think, are what you would predict. Kind of three aspirational parts is safety. We have some highway statistics. I don't want to cite my own state, but I will cite my own state where our safety statistics are not as good as they can be. One aspect of safety I'm really worried about is this worker safety on our highways. We just had another incident just the other day in West Virginia where somebody just blew through the workplace and ended up, I can't even remember if the person lost their life. I think they did, through the work zone. We got to do better here. I'm sure all of your states are having this issue because there's so much dirt flying everywhere because of the extensive investments that we've made over the last several years. Well, we've got to make sure that your workforce and our workforce out doing the good work are safe, and that the driver, the motorist, or the trucker is very cognizant of that workplace safety item. So that's one of the issues that I want to be involved in. So safety first, whether it's how we rebuild our highways, whether it's how we what we're doing during construction, the materials that we use. Are we building for the cars of the future? This was a big question when EVs came in. Can the guardrails really hold an electric vehicle? They're a lot heavier. They have a different height of a vehicle. So all of these things we need to consider as we're looking. Principle 2 would be reform and modernize our federal programs and policies to increase efficiencies. Over the last years, and I'm sure that you all can tell me and have told your members, some of the programs, the discretionary programs that were created under the last highway bill, I don't even know if they're even all off the ground. It was like mud through a drain, just sitting there. And every time I'd have the opportunity to talk to the secretary or the federal highways, why aren't we moving these? And I could never really get a good answer, except the complicating factors around all of the different parameters that were added on into all the different boxes that you had to check before you could actually apply. Do you qualify for this kind of funding? I created a rural roads program. Quite frankly, I kind of created it with one road in mind, quarter H. It doesn't qualify. I'm like, well, if that's not rural, I don't know what is. But apparently the definitions are very important. So we want to make sure that we review what we did. Let's get rid of the ones that didn't work. Let's get rid of the ones that don't work and put those discretionary dollars back into the formula programs where you can make the decisions, and your governors and your state legislators, or however you do it, can make the decisions what works for you. And so that gets me to my third one, which is the flexibility aspect of this. I know that what works in West Virginia is not going to be what California needs. Arizona has different issues because of their climate. We all have different types of aspects. So flexibility in these programs, I think, is going to be exceedingly critical to you. And it seems like whenever we've been called and asked by our DOT to interface with federal highways because there's a question, it's always about how can we fit what our needs are into the square pegs of what US DOT is saying we could and should do. And I think that if we can look at these things squarely, I think that we can eliminate a lot of that in the next bill by streamlining, by making more efficient, and by also taking into consideration what's worked the best, what hasn't worked the best, and incorporate that using your expertise. So I'm very excited about this. The aspects of the bridge, the expansion of funding into the bridges is something that is extremely important to me. We have, I don't know how many, they can tell me how many bridges, but we got a lot of bridges in West Virginia. We're a small state. We got a lot of hills and hollows and valleys, and we got a lot of bridges. We have a lot of bridges that need help. Are they safe? They're safe right now. Are they going to be safe in 5 years? I don't know. 10 years? I don't know. And so it's not they're going to fall in right now, but if we don't maintain and if we don't build them back correctly, we're going to have we're going to have even more serious problems and more funding demands than we have right now. So I look forward to that. I know workforce is an issue. We have tried and will continue to try through committee, and this is all bipartisan, to try to figure out a way to get the workforce of tomorrow ready. Use AI, I'm sure, will be something that will be a part of your future and our future. It probably is right now, but I mean in the future, and how do we square that in with the highway bill? Is there something for AI? I'm just kind of freelancing here, but I think there is. I mean, there is for everything else. There might as well be, there is for construction and design, and I think that's extremely important. I think you can expect the EV mandate to fall. It will, and now they say there's no EV mandate, but the tailpipe rules actually mandate EVs into the future because that's the only way you can actually meet those mandates. I expect all of that to fall out either in reconciliation or through regulation for that the president can move forward in. I was very frustrated and very vocally frustrated that we wrote the highway bill And the last administration came in and put the guidance out shortly after they came into office, which really smacked of where we had negotiated. I had negotiated with Carper as to what the direction we were going to do, particularly in the climate area. We did a lot in the bill on that, but we left a lot of things on the cutting room floor. And the past administration just tried to bring it back. And I tried to tell the Secretary Buttigieg, I said, you're putting into guidance, which is supposedly not regulation, but it was ruled a regulation, so that was good. You're putting into guidance parameters that we actively talked about, and I accepted some, and he accepted some, but some of this fell off, and you're now putting it back into the parameters of the highway funding. And he said, well, it's just good policy. And I'm like, hey, buddy, you're not the policymaker here. We are. And so we're going to keep pounding that drum to make sure that the way we write it, the way it's written, doesn't leave any of these doors open for some of the leeway that we found over the last several years a different administration might take. So, I know there's lots going on in Washington. The president's only been in office 2 weeks in a day, feels like 2 years in a day. And so every day is different. He's a builder. He likes to build. What else do we build besides highways? We build them well, and we build them together, and it's all good for our states, highways, bridges, and the infrastructure that we so desperately need. So I think we're going to have a lot of action in our space the coming year. So we'll look at the parameters that I laid out. We should be able to get to a bipartisan. We're giving ourselves enough time. We're working with the House at the same time. So we're giving ourselves enough time and enough leeway to be able to do this the right way. And so it may look a little arduous from your perspective at times, but I think that's going to be the best way to do it to make sure. I'm interested in one federal decision. You all can tell me, is it really working? I don't see anybody shaking their heads yes, but I don't see anybody saying no, but I hear it's not working like we had hoped it would work. I'll put it that way. So we need to tighten that up to make sure, because permitting is going to be front and center on all aspects of energy projects, road projects, water projects, broadband projects, green projects, anything, any kind of project can't get permitted, and it's time and it's money. And it's also lack of innovation and modernization and safety if we're holding up these projects because we can't get through the regulatory process to be able to secure the permits. So we're going to be looking at that. I don't know if that'll be part of the highway bill. I don't know if it'll be part of another bill, but there's total bipartisan interest in permitting reform. It's a difficult one to get over the threshold, but it's, I can tell you after being here for a long time, it's got the steady drumbeat of desire. And so that's always a good thing when you're trying to push a piece of legislation across the finish line. So with that, I'll just stop, and I will say this because I asked what Senator Whitehouse talked about while he was here, and I know he's very upset about what's gone on with the last day or so with USAID and other things. I would just say, let's keep the faith here. We need to look at where our money's being spent. We need to look who's getting the money. We need to look at how much of it's going out. We have had a lack of transparency, particularly in USAID, that I think has been frustrating to many members. Senator Marco Rubio is now our Secretary of State. He knows this program backwards and forwards, and I would expect that he's going to have a good handle on where USAID makes the most impacts in our lives and globally in our lives and our global community, and we're going to keep doing that. So I have a different view. I think I'm very optimistic. People are very excited about looking at the expenses and all the money that we spend, and I am one of those who's enthusiastic about it as well. So with that, I'll take questions. Thanks.